So the next thing we need to do is punch in a little area where this text is going to go on our weapon. So already we've got this set up with a bunch of live booleans in it, which we went over earlier, but I want to go ahead and punch in something right here. So I'm going to alt tap this subtool here. I'm going to go into my custom. This is just a bunch of primitives in here. So I got a sphere 16, sphere 12, sphere 8. We've got a ring. We've got a cylinder that's pointed towards me this way. We've got 8, 12, 16, and 32 cylinder here. I like 8, 12, 16, 24, and 32 because, for example, if I go in here and grab a cylinder 12 and I just pull this out of my mesh, and then I go do, if I do split mass points, it's going to split this. It's going to split these mass points below my subtool, but because I want this to be a subtractive mesh, I'm going to do split unmask points. That's going to put that underneath, and now you're going to see, it made its own start group, but I'm going to go ahead and select this one here, and now this is underneath. I can make it subtractive, and I have live boolean turned on, so if I just push this back in to the object, it's already going to start subtracting out. Weird thing that's happening on this thing is see how it's all faceted? It's smooth but faceted. That's because this object right here has QGrid turned on, dynamic QGrid, which we've talked about this before too. I can give you a quick overview on that. But what I want to do for this barrel is under my dynamic properties, and all the split stuff we were talking about is under subtool split. All the dynamic stuff we're going to be talking about is under geometry dynamic subdiv. But for this one, we want to turn QGrid off. And if I go into solo mode, you're going to see what we're doing. So here is dynamic turned off. Here it is turned on. And right now it's just doing a smooth subdivision. So if we take this down to like smooth subdivision of 3, you'll see it's a little bit more faceted. If we go down to 1, it's just giving you a preview of what it would look like if we hit Control D or hit this divide key. So if I go up to like smooth subdiv of 3, and if we want to go ahead and crease these edges, a lot of different ways we can do that. We go down here to crease. You can manually go in here with your Z modeler brush, hover over an edge, and then do like crease edge loop complete, and you can just crease these. You can also go down here to the crease tolerance here, drop that down, hit crease, and that'll go ahead and crease based on the normal angle threshold. So if we go out of polyframe mode, you can see this is what the example or the result we're getting. Now, if you want to give a slight little relaxation on these edges so they're not quite so harsh, what you can do is underneath dynamic, you've got crease, and you got a crease level. So we've got a smooth subdiv of 3. If I change that crease level to 2, and then do Shift D to go out of dynamic mode, and then D to go back in, you're going to see that kind of backs off a little bit. So we can go to like smooth subdiv of 5, crease level of 4, and that'll just go ahead and make this a little bit tighter. But I like the smooth subdiv of 3, crease level of 2. And what I can do now is I can go ahead and tighten up these edges a little bit. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to go to Insert Single Edge Loop, and I'm just going to pull an edge in there to just kind of tighten those transitions up just a bit. And basically what it's doing is subdividing up twice to my crease level and keeping those edges creased, and then it's uncreasing all and then doing another smooth. All on the fly, it's real time, but it's just a preview. So I can change these settings and still go back to my normal mesh here and still add, like I can Q mesh this stuff out, and I can hit D, and it will just keep those same settings here. And if I want to, now I can just do my crease again, crease tolerance, and now I'm getting that kind of look with the beveled edges here. So if we want to, we can go like smooth subdiv of 4, crease level of 3. There we go. And it just builds it in. And if you don't like this, you can go through here and we just Q mesh this back. Of course, it's keeping our creases on there. So if we want to, we can go in here to crease edge, and we can hold down Alt, and we can uncrease these edges here. There we go. And let's see, we can also Q mesh. So Q mesh is cool. We've gone through Q mesh a bunch. So now in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do uncrease all in our crease menu, and then I'll just do our crease tolerance here. And now we're back where we started. And we can hit Control W, make that all one polygroup. Anyway, long story short, that's how you make a cylinder. So we have our live boolean turned on. If I turn that off, you're going to see our cylinder sitting in here. It's sitting within the start group of this object here. So we've got a start group, and then we've got all these subtractive meshes underneath it that are subtracting these shapes out. And when I go into live boolean mode, you're going to see those shapes are now being subtracted out of that mesh. So if we alt tap this one here, this is one we're manipulating. So let's go ahead and scale this down. You're going to see my gizmo is just off to the side. Hold down Alt, go to Unmatch Mesh Center, and then hold down Alt, and then go to Reset Orientation. So now we're back where right in the middle of that object. If I start scaling this now, it's going to scale. If I go into solo mode here, you're going to see it's going to scale towards the middle of the world and then away from the world. In order to not do that, turn on LSim. That's going to do local symmetry, and now you'll be able to see it just scale locally on its own axis here. So that way we can go ahead and scale this down, move it up, and we'll say, okay, that's about the size that I want this to be drawn on there. So if I go into solo mode now in the polyframe, hold down Control and Alt, hit W and hold down Control. Let's do Shift D so you can see the actual geometry here. So again, I'm holding down Control. Well, I'm unmasking half of this. I'm holding down Control and I'm just pulling this out, and that's going to add an edge loop for me. It'll just add, and you can hold down Control and just keep pulling this out, and it'll just keep adding more and more and more. So that's transpose modeling. You can do a little bit more fancy stuff with the transpose line, and to get that, just hit Y, and that'll toggle from transpose to gizmo. But we're just using the gizmo now just to pull out a simple edge ring here. So we've got this here, so we can hold down Control and then drag to unmask that. If we hit D, we still have our dynamic subdivisions. We do need to do a little bit of cleanup here. Just really quickly, I'm just going to grab that crease tolerance and go and crease that. If I go out of solo mode, out of polyframe mode, it's already cut in. A couple things I want to change about it though. Number one, it kind of curves up and then it kind of bows out while it's averaging those vertices and then bows back in. So to fix that, also looks like it's got a little bit of a weird issue. And you can also, you know, in order to get these things to just average correctly, sometimes it's useful if we go in here. For example, we go to Inset Flat Island Region. You can just kind of inset an edge loop here to kind of make sure those vertices average correctly. So now when you hit D, it should be a cleaner result all the way around. Now, if it's too tight, we can go right back into our dynamic settings and say crease level of 2 and turn that back on. There we go. Kind of loosen those edges up. But to fix this issue here, what we can do, two things we can do. We can try creasing this whole side. Here's another easy way to crease. We can hold down Control Shift, grab all these polygons here, and any open edges you have, if you hit crease, it'll go ahead and crease any open edges. So really quickly, you can just crease those. And now when we hit D, it'll keep those edges creased, and now it goes curves around, stops, and then continues to curve. If you don't want it, or if you want to control that a little bit more, what you can do is Control Z, Control Z. You can go in here, hover over an edge, go to Insert, Single Edge Loop, and you just pull along that surface there. And now you can kind of dial in exactly how tight you want those transitions to be. So, oops. And also, if you don't want Dynamesh turned on, just go to your Dynamesh settings and turn that off so when you control drag, it doesn't accidentally Dynamesh your object. So that's one change I wanted to make. Another change I wanted to make is getting a bevel. As this pushes in, I want it to kind of push in, but see how that transition is really sharp. We can fix this later on the union mesh, maybe, but I'm going to go ahead and fix it while we're in here. So let's go into solo mode. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do Shift D, and we'll go out of solo mode here, and we'll turn off live Boolean. So basically what it's doing is it's pushing this object into this object here. Now this is a little overkill as far as the bevel, because really I'm not using 90% of this object. I'm just using a little bit of it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Insert, Single Edge Loop. Here, I'm going to hover over this edge. We're going to go to Polyloop, Polygroup. I'm going to tap Alt just to make sure I get a new subtool here. And you know what? Let's go ahead and just tap all of these, because what I'm going to do now is, you know what? I need to do this. I need breathing space on this bevel. So what I'm going to do is hold down Alt, Polyloop this one, and tap Alt. So I'm going to do QMesh, Polygroup All. I'm going to start Q-meshing these. Q-mesh, Polygroup All. I'm going to start Q-meshing these, but I'm going to hold down Shift, and what that's going to do is just pull along that surface normal. So I'm building in a bevel right here. So as I push this in, it's going to start beveling out. Now what I'm going to do, if I hit D, you're going to see it's a very smooth transition. I want to crease those. So what I can do really quickly is just go into the crease menu, do crease PG, and then I'll go ahead and crease my polygroups here. So now you see that's the shape I'm getting. And now when I start pushing this in, if I go back into my live Boolean mode and I push this in, you're going to see as I push in, it's going to start beveling out a little bit. So I just wanted to put a little bevel in there. If you do want it harsher, you can go in back into your dynamic settings. We got smooth subdiv of 3. Let's do crease level of 3. There we go. So now we're getting a little bit of a tighter bevel along there. Problem is, as we're pushing this in, it's like, okay, now we're getting a bevel, but that bevel is like, it's really deep and the bevel's happening here. So all I got to do is go through here and just change this transition here. Just move these in. So now it'll bevel in, it'll push in just a little bit and then immediately start beveling here. So now that we've done that, unmask that. So now we can push in just a little bit and then it'll start beveling. So you can dictate how deep you want that to go. And in fact, even if that's too much, let's just continue to make that transition smaller there. There you go. So now we can push in, add a little bevel, and we're off to the races. And now we can just position this a little bit better and say hereabouts.